Do you suffer from uncontrollable rage? The desire to destroy public property? Acid indigestion? Are you sick of corporate corruption that will most likely destroy our planet through something lame like climate change, instead of something cool like giant monsters? Have you watched cable news for more than 30 seconds? Yes, we are technically counting that as news. Well, then you might be suffering from reality, or more commonly known as IRL. IRL affects 10 out of every 10 gamers worldwide and can lead to symptoms like never-ending debt, a boring day job, death, and social interaction. If you think you might be suffering from IRL, then you may need Rampage. Side effects of Rampage may include having fun, laughing out loud, and a surprising amount of satisfaction. Do not take Rampage if you are easily triggered by things that have no real bearing on your actual life, or if you can't tell the difference between video game violence and real life, aka someone with an agenda against video games, and literally nobody else. Remember, reality blows. Take Rampage World Tour. Originally hitting the arcades back in 1997, Rampage World Tour is a remake of the 1986 game Rampage, a game that puts you, the gamer, in control of 3 giant monsters as you completely ravage the world. It's a very simple and pretty repetitive game, but the concept is just brilliant, and for all its shortcomings, it's very cathartic. So let's not waste any more time and destroy the world. And play Rampage, but not necessarily in that order. Thankfully, you won't need to go see a doctor to get a prescription for Rampage World Tour, or even shell out for an arcade machine, as it's widely available across multiple platforms. Initially being ported to the PS1, the N64, and the Sega Saturn, the arcade version would go on to be released as a part of Midway Arcade Treasures 2 for the Xbox, the GameCube, and the PlayStation 2. So it's pretty easy to get a hold of, and even better, there are barely any differences between the lot, though I'll be sure to mention any significant differences should they arise. But that won't happen much since every version offers nearly identical opportunities to unleash your inner monster as you smash, break, burn, and crush everything in sight as you travel from country to country, hunting down and destroying the evil corporation that transformed you into a monster in the first place. Yes, that is actually the story of the game. 3 normal humans were turned into giant monsters and are basically out for revenge. So, does that actually make you the hero? Oh yeah. Probably not. Though, if you gotta go all Godzilla in the world, would you really want to be the good guy? I mean, where's the fun in that? And the arcade version glances over this anyway, with most of the details actually being in the console versions. Not that it really matters though, the story is pretty much forgettable. So much so that Hollywood seems to have forgotten to include it in the movie. Give it to me straight, Doctor. Will it make money? It doesn't look good, but I've injected it with the vitamin R. So now, all we can do is wait. You do understand that this is a video game movie, right? Yes, Doctor, I know. Only the box office results will tell. Oy, oy, oy. Well, you know what they say. Those who don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. Oh, hardy har. But while we're on the subject of movies, let's take a look at our 3 heroes. I bet they look familiar, don't they? And I'm sure that's no coincidence, as this game is just oozing with personality and character, especially in the graphics and animations department. In fact, I'd argue that the look and personality of this game is really the game's greatest strength. Just watch what happens when you try to jump longer distances. Or how about when you jump on a person? Or just getting into a brawl. But it's not just these big actions the monsters take, but all the little details you find throughout the game that really just put a smile on my face. Things like getting to eat those Buckingham Palace guards. Man, look at their diligence. They really don't move a muscle in any situation, do they? No, 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 no. Or how about when we get to do a little cleaning up by rooting out these indecent individuals? Or how about defying God himself? Is that all you got? Nothing is mightier than the power of infinite lives! But seriously, the game feels just like an old 90s cartoon, you know, before we had trigger warnings. And even better yet, it kind of reminds me of an old Where's Waldo book. Sure, there's the main goal, but there's still plenty of other fun things to see if you just look around. And it really does capture the fun and quirkiness necessary to keep subject material like, you know, the extinction of the human race, fun and lighthearted. Ooh, wow, that's an interesting string of words I'd never thought I'd say. But still, ignoring the urge to make this game 3D at the beginning of the 3D era really worked out in the long run, as this game's look and style still really holds up. Pity then that that's really the only thing that does. Rampage's biggest problem is that it's really laugh out loud fun, but only for like 20 minutes. Then it gets super repetitive, like more so than any game I've ever played. And the music seems to just be trying to punctuate that fact by only having around 4 different songs. And this game has over 100 levels, so I think that's saying a lot. But at least the songs aren't bad, and yeah, they're definitely fitting. But let's break it all down. Every level in the game pretty much goes like this. You have a few minutes to demolish all the buildings in a very small area, while an ever-growing group of resistance tries to stop you. Failure to destroy everything in that time frame will result in you not getting into that college you applied for, your parents not loving you, and that special someone you like not going out with you and instead going out with that tool from accounting. Yeah, you know the one. But I guess nothing happens to you in-game, so yeah. All that really happens is that the government just bombs the city and some people get away. And the bombs don't even hurt you either. I mean, you'd think that they would. These bombs hurt you, so why don't these? Honestly, the only real penalty for you is that you don't get the point bonus at the end of the stage, which kind of highlights a part of this game's aging issue. It's a point-based arcade game, and while you can complete the game, the only true goal is to rack up a high score. Which of course means you're pretty much free to play however you want, but there aren't any real goals, real objectives, or real challenges to help drive the game forward. You know, other than your own unquenchable lust for mayhem and destruction. Which kinda sucks because there isn't that much of a variety as far as what you can actually destroy. For the most part, every level consists of roughly the same buildings. You got your suburban homes, your skyscrapers, and what I can only assume are trampoline factories. Now you will get the occasional local exclusive landmark like Big Ben's clock tower, but that's pretty far and few in between. And you'd think that a game called World Tour would better represent, you know, the world. But I guess it's a small world after all, since every place, every culture looks the same. I mean, it's definitely a limitation of the time to be sure. Procedural generation really hadn't taken off yet, but it's still a real missed opportunity. Though if you've got that destructive itch and you really want a game of that era that does it right, try Twisted Metal 2. But getting back to Rampage, smashing buildings is also one of the ways you uncover power-ups, like Super Strength and Fire Breath, as well as uncovering other things like health items, toxic items, gags, and just more points. But the best power-ups come in the levels that show off this message beforehand. Yeah, the toxic waste, which lets you transform into a flying monster that shoots fire, which is pretty sweet. Though I should mention that where and how you find these power-ups and items also allows for you to optimize your time to try and get the best score possible, if you're into that kind of thing. These power-ups are also pretty helpful in staying alive or just when fighting foes. But there's an issue with that too. The enemies, while ever growing in their forces, don't actually have to be fought. Like, check out this huge enemy that first appeared in, of course, where else but Japan. You don't actually have to destroy it to proceed. Or how about in good old Washington, DC? No, this actually looks pretty normal. Let's move on. Really, the big problem here is that you can pretty much just ignore everything. Only the tanks and jetpack guys are actively trying to kill you, and while the temptation to go after them is always there, and really why would you not want to squash them like the bugs they are, but again, it's not really necessary. You simply don't have to. Plus, it really doesn't help that the controls, especially on the arcade version, are kinda stiff, especially when jumping, which makes hitting those jetpack jerks a real pain in the ass. Though the console controls aren't nearly as stiff. It's much more enjoyable to crush your foes here. But honestly, it's actually more fun to just beat up on your friends than it is to beat on your enemies. And ironically, the game rewards you for that too. And in the home ports, there's even a mini game for it. Though I think that if I was actually blowing through quarters at an actual arcade, I'd be pretty pissed if my friend just started killing me for the lulz. Hey buddy, you know what other game Midway made?
Fatality.
Luckily, every version of this game, except for when playing on an actual arcade machine, has infinite lives, which you're kind of gonna need since you are constantly taking hits in this game. And unlike every other giant monster movie ever, the military's weaponry is surprisingly effective here, so death will come swiftly, and often, and cheaply. It's pretty much unavoidable. This game is actually pretty lacking in any kind of skill-based gameplay. So it really is all about having fun, screwing around, seeing the jokes, and just destroying stuff. And of course, the best way to do that is with friends. In fact, you can even make a fun drinking game out of it. Take a drink every time you die. And a fun little bonus is, when a player dies, they turn back into a human. And if they don't press start soon enough, another player can, and should, eat them. If you get eaten, take another drink. Obviously, this works best when playing with a maximum of 3 players, so it's worth noting that the PlayStation and Saturn versions only have 2 players. Boo. And really, having fun, joking around, laughing at the gags really is the best way to get the most out of Rampage World Tour, because otherwise, there just isn't that much else to this game. Really, it's the concept and the visual execution of it all that really makes it work. And I know quite a few gamers have a lot of nostalgia for this game, myself included. So my hope is that with a movie getting, well, let's not kid ourselves here, getting shelled out for a quick cash grab, that it'll result in them eventually making a remake of Rampage. Preferably one that really runs with the whole giant monster thing and takes it all the way. I mean, I want to have good fights with giant mechs, duke it out with other monsters, and get the crushed cities and monuments that actually represent different places in the world. Wow, oh, this little wish list of mine makes me sound like, really unstable. But I think it can all work as long as it keeps that comedic flair that this game has. I don't know, maybe let the monsters eat some celebrities or politicians or something. That would be fun. And I think this would be the first game I'd absolutely want to see some in-game advertising in. But as it stands, Rampage World Tour, regardless of which version you're playing, overall is just a very monotonous game. Each level basically plays the same. They all sound the same. And despite looking pretty good, with fun and goofy animations and jokes, it all still looks the same. I honestly can't imagine this game holding many players' attentions for far too long. But if you really are hell-bent on finishing the game, take note that it'll roughly take you about 3 hours. And the arcade version doesn't have a save feature, so the console ports might actually be the best option if you don't want to have to play it all in one sitting, which I don't recommend doing. Trust me, I did it over 3 times for this video. But really, in the end, Rampage World Tour is all about having a laugh and just enjoying being a giant monster. You know, being a bad guy for a change. It's one of those games that's just most enjoyable with a group in small bursts, and preferably drunk. Otherwise, unless you're a really hardcore retro arcade fan, you should probably pass on this one. Are you suffering from weariness? A lack of anything interesting to do? Are you just looking for quality content to consume, but just can't seem to find anything? Well, then you might be suffering from boredom. But you're not alone. Did you know that 10 out of 10 internet dwellers suffer from boredom? But thankfully now, there's a cure. Subscribing. Side effects of subscribing include being entertained, being informed, getting my latest videos when they come out, and best of all, you don't even need to bribe a doctor for a prescription. Subscribing. It works.